Once in a quiet valley, there lived a humble farmer named Kiran. He tilled the land with his hands, worked under the sun's watchful eye, and cared for his crops like they were his children. His harvests were modest but sufficient, and his life was steady, though often mundane. Yet, Kiran's heart ached with longing. Every night, as he gazed at the stars scattered across the inky sky, he wondered if he was destined for something greater. If only I had more land, more wealth, more recognition, then I would truly be happy, he mused. One evening, as Kiran walked home from his fields, he stumbled upon an old traveler resting under a gnarled tree. The man's beard was long, his robes threadbare, but his eyes sparkled like the heavens above. Beside him sat an unusual object, a glass jar filled with tiny glowing lights that shimmered and danced like captured stars. "Good evening, farmer," said the traveler. "You seem troubled." Kiran sighed and confessed his longing for a life of abundance and significance. The traveler smiled knowingly. "This," he said, lifting the jar, "is a glass of stars. Each light inside represents an unfulfilled desire, a wish yet to be granted. Carry it with you, and whenever you face a choice, the stars will guide you to what you think you truly want. But beware, desires are not always what they seem." Without hesitation, Kiran accepted the jar, his heart swelling with hope. At first, the glass of stars was a marvel. When Kiran wished for a larger plot of land, the jar glowed brightly, leading him to a neighboring field being sold for a pittance. With his newfound wealth, he hired workers to help, and soon his farm grew more prosperous than ever. But as the weeks passed, Kiran's contentment waned. The jar's glow began to dim, as though urging him onward. "Perhaps I need more," he thought. So he wished for a grander home, and the jar led him to an abandoned mansion on the outskirts of the valley. He moved in, filling its vast halls with fine furnishings and treasures. Yet the mansion felt cold and empty. The glow of the jar flickered faintly as if whispering, "Is this enough?" Driven by its fading light, Kiran sought riches, fame, and influence. He became known far and wide as the wealthiest man in the valley, a figure both admired and envied. But with each wish fulfilled, the jar's glow diminished further. One night, Kiran found himself alone in his grand estate, the glass of stars now dim and nearly lifeless. Exhausted and restless, he stared into its faint light. "Why am I still not happy?" he muttered. "I have everything I ever wanted." As if in answer, the jar emitted a single, faint pulse. Then, for the first time, it went dark. Panicked, Kiran shook the jar, but the stars inside remained lifeless. In desperation, he sought out the old traveler, who he found once again under the same gnarled tree. "You lied to me," Kiran exclaimed, holding out the darkened jar. "I have followed its light, but I am emptier than ever." The traveler's eyes twinkled with quiet wisdom. "Did the jar lie, or did it simply reflect your desires?" he asked gently. Kiran stared at the jar, his hands trembling. "Think back," the traveler continued. "When were you last truly happy?" Images of his simpler days flashed in Kiran's mind. The feel of soil between his fingers, the warmth of his modest home, the joy of sharing a meal with his neighbors. In his pursuit of more, he had abandoned the life that had once brought him peace. The traveler smiled. "The stars can guide, but they cannot decide. Happiness was never in the jar. It was within you all along." Kiran returned to his farm, leaving behind the mansion, the treasures, and the jar itself. He reconnected with the land, his neighbors, and the quiet rhythm of life. Though his days were no longer filled with grand pursuits, his heart was lighter than it had been in years. From that day forward, Kiran learned to treasure what he had rather than chasing what he lacked. In life, we are often led astray by the glitter of what we think we want, wealth, recognition, or possessions. But true contentment doesn't come from accumulating more. It comes from appreciating what is already ours. Next time you feel restless, ask yourself, am I chasing stars in a jar or tending to the light within me?